Take a seat.
Today on Front Seat, we have an interesting number of interviews for you by some world movers and social innovators. Some of these interviews were conducted by Miss Penny Loh, founder of SIP, Social Innovation Park. It's a Singapore initiative to sort of promote social entrepreneurship over here. Okay, without further ado, why don't you check out these interviews?
What is social innovation in a nutshell?
Social innovation is a process by which paradigms are being shifted for the greater good of society. And that refers to two specific groups of people who are really acting in that field. One is the social entrepreneurs who leverage on business models to resolve or to reduce social conflicts, causes, for example, integrating the marginalized group and making sure that poverty issues are being addressed adequately via a hands-up method and not a hand-out method. And there is another group, which is the innovators themselves, who are making these changes. And the innovators here I refer to are the technological innovators. They could also be the supply or demand chain, value chain innovators, or they could quite simply be the bio-life sciences innovators.
This concept of social innovation and entrepreneurship, it's a very, very new concept in Asia. It's still just taking root. So what, in your opinion, can be done to actually, make this a bigger movement, more widespread, not just amongst individuals, but also for corporations as well?
Well, indeed, that is why SIP was set up. SIP stands for the Social Innovation Park. And we have the 3E mission. The first E is to educate. Educate. And the second E, empower. The third E, enhance. And when we talk about educate, we're talking about educating the masses about the concept of social innovation, the concept of social entrepreneurship. We are also talking about educating the social entrepreneurs themselves so that they understand that this is not just another way of doing charity. It is in fact focusing a lot about not giving the child a fish, but rather teaching the child to fish, and also beyond that, changing the fishing industry itself so that the rules of the games are a little bit different. It can be a lot more inclusive, because where we are today, we operate by a certain set of rules, which I think has done very, very well for perhaps the top 20% of the world in terms of population. But the rest of the 80% of the world doesn't exist very well in this particular set of rules. So take, for example, if you are left-handed, or if you are right-handed, and I say you can only use your left hand. If you use fork and spoon, and I say you can only use chopsticks now to, take your meals, what would happen? I think we would be immediately disabled. We would be immediately marginalized. So how do we change the set of the rules so that we can now also encompass a larger group of people? And this doesn't necessarily mean that we have to change everything, but rather small tweaks in the current systems that can bring in a much bigger group and have a more inclusive setup. So that is on the education part. On the empowerment part, what we try to do, therefore, is to have incubation for social entrepreneurs and innovator wannabes. And by this, we have set up this thing called PATH, which is Pop and Talent Hub. So we have set up Pop and Talent Hub, and we link up all our artists who are usually from the marginalized sector to become artists. But the idea is not just for them to become artists to sell their crafts at the PATH market, which is at VivoCity, but rather it becomes a platform for them to speak about their form of special ability, which we commonly call disability. And on top of that, for them to mainstream themselves, learn how to talk to the clients, the consumers who are the normal population, so that they can then also learn that they are part of the mainstream and they can be part of the mainstream. Many of them, when they first started, the first thing they said is, for example, from the Hard of Hearing and Deaf Association, they said, we can't even understand or hear what our consumers are saying. And our consumers don't understand our sign languages. How are we ever going to communicate with them, let alone explain their crafts? And we said to them, well, we'll put in a volunteer. We'll put in someone who will help you with the display, with the procurement, with the entire works of things. All that we are saying is that you are just as able as anyone else. So come forward, step in front of the counter, not hide behind the counter, and start to communicate, start to be proud of yourself and start to uplift your dignity level. Because it is about dignity level. If people feel a sense of dignity, they will then want to do something for themselves. When they want to do something for themselves and they get small little achievements, they will realize that they can be empowered and they can then go on to infect their family, who will then start to look at them from a very different light. From that of, oh, you're going to be a social burden to us, to that of, wow, you're now bringing home the bacon, And I think it's from there that you will see small parts of these paradigms being changed. And the larger part is, of course, society might then see them as able, special talent, rather than the disabled and marginalized group. So coming back to the example of the Hard of Hearing group, today we found that they are in fact one of the most creative groups where they were able to produce goods that sells very fast. And when we take one more step to understand how and why they did it, we realize that it was because they cannot hear with their ears, but they listen with their eyes. And communication is 80% nonverbal, 20% verbal. So they were able to see and look around. What is it that consumers like to touch? What colors attract them? What shapes are they fancy? Do they fancy? And then from there, they're able to do this market data collection and translate them into products. And the net result of that is that their products sell. Now that is a special talent and a skill. So the next step for us is, can we then capture some of these special abilities that you and I, normal people who are easily distracted because all our five senses are so can we then find something where we can pay a premium for their special ability? And I think when we are able to find the space for that, we would then be able to change social paradigms and for people to understand that they have special abilities. So that's a part of the empowerment. So the incubation, the capacity building, the hand-holding, the mentorship, and so on, that's under empowerment. The third part of it is enhancement. So we want to try enhance. Enhance what? Well, enhance, first of all, their own knowledge. So a social entrepreneur who is quite there already, but they may lack things like network. They may lack things like exposures to new ideas and to international or even regional type of platforms. They may lack the exposure in terms of how they can bring their products and scale up or replicate their ideas in other parts of the world. And this is where SIP has a very, very powerful network. And the network extends to the people sector, the public sector, and the private sector, locally and overseas. And that's where we can play a very huge part to enhance their ability to do so.
Do you have any, parting words for aspiring social innovators, entrepreneurs?
The seemingly impossible is possible. Pursue your passion, because passion is love in action. Don't give up.
Take a seat.